real business owners.
What's up, everybody? This is Cale Goodman, and I got my partner,
Trevor Cowley. yeah. I'm here.
Is episode number 6 of Real Business Owners, and today we've got a real business owner joining us, Danny Blue.
What's up? What's up? I feel very fortunate to be here in this fancy office, the mics, the video camera.
It's a rented office, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just renting it for like 2 hours and then we got to get out.
Well, let's go rent.
We rented it for you because you're special.
Let's go in the rented Lamborghini and go grab some lunch.
Let's do it. Let's take pictures for Instagram too so that we can look like we're doing it up real big.
We have to do that.
Isn't that what everybody does?
That's what if we were in Vegas, we could do a lot easier. Not up here in St. George. But I know Danny's a real business owner because we've done business together for many years. He's also a fellow brother in the Arete movement, and man, I'm excited to have you on the show, dude.
Yeah, thank you for having us, or having me. And I was asking you guys if we had an Arete member on here, and answer was no. So I'm excited to make some history with you, gentlemen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're excited to have you. And guys, just so that you know, Danny does own a company called Quest Education, and if you could tell him just a little bit about your business and you know, what it is that you do and how you bring value to people.
Yeah, so Quest Education solves a really big problem in the marketplace. So there's trillions of dollars that's in IRAs and 401ks, and people have the thought that if they touch this money, they're going to pay penalties and taxes. They're going to get nailed by the IRS. But they're not aware is they can actually roll that money over into a self-directed account, so then they could use that money to access without paying the penalties. You know, maybe they want to use that money to invest into a business or pay off some high interest rate debt, or maybe they need a working capital. So it's just really helping them understand that there's other options for retirement accounts, especially if you're a business owner. So our company caters to people that are 1099, self-employed, LLC, some kind of side hustle, and we just are here to shed light on some strategies that are not talked about because the financial advisors, the big financial companies, they don't want you to know about this.
Yeah, they don't want you to pull money out of an account that they ultimately make money off of annually.
Yep.
But you want them to know that it is their money, they do have access to it, and there's proper ways to go about getting access to their money. And is that why it's Quest Education? Is because it's more of an educational process in terms of how to access your money? Or
100%. You know,
Okay.
we don't sell investments. We don't give financial advice. We're just here to provide the public the education that's out there. It's just not talked about. So it's just really simple IRS code. The IRS, they're the ones that really put together the rules for 401ks and IRAs. They say what you can and can't do, and we're just here to bring that information to the surface. And one thing I've realized is it's just not talked about. And
they're just trying to bury it, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They want your money in the market, and they want to make money off of your money, but you want to help people get access to their money if they're paying 15 or 20% interest on credit cards. Rather than paying 15 or 20% interest on credit cards, they can go through somebody like you that could teach them how to access some of their money that they have available to them and basically borrow money to themselves to pay off maybe some high interest loans, or like you said, you know, get access to working capital for their business. And then what's the process of, you know, I guess getting access to the money and getting it back into that account? They have to set up like a structured payment plan.
Well, there's two ways. You could take a loan from a solo 401k where it's a 5-year term, and you do pay yourself back over 5 years at a 7.5% interest rate. That 7.5% is fixed. It goes right back into the solo 401k.
So you don't set your own interest rate?
It's prime plus 2. So whatever prime's at plus 2. So as we're doing this podcast right now, it's about 7.5% is the interest rate on a solo 401k loan. So that's one way to do it. Another way is you can just actually set up a self-directed 401k with a C Corp. It's called the Rob's plan. So we had a customer here recently. They needed $200,000 to invest into their business, and they didn't want to have a loan on their 401k. So they just set up this self-directed 401k with the C Corp, where the money gets rolled over into the self-directed 401k. Then that money goes into the C Corp business bank account, and now this guy has checks that he can.
So as long as it's if that money goes from, you know, an investment account or managed account over to a C Corp, it doesn't get taxed?
Correct. This plan is called a Rob's plan, a rollover business startup plan. So this is really popular for people that need 6 figures for a business, maybe like a franchise.
What happens, let's say, for instance, somebody rolls money over to a C Corp. Do they have to keep it a C Corp for X amount of years, or the following year could they elect, a different entity type for their business if it's more tax friendly for them?
They could switch it up if they wanted to have another entity. They could add that in the picture, but as long as they keep that self-directed 401k, that Rob's plan, the C corp still has to remain in the picture.
Gotcha. Cool.
Where does the actual interest go?
It goes right back in their 401k.
So you're paying your interest back to yourself, right? That's where a lot of people actually get confused. Because I know you've worked with some of our clients even, they're like, hey man, I need to do something with this. They have questions on the difference between SEP IRAs versus solo 401ks. And it is true, man. Hardly anyone's ever heard of the solo 401k, but there's so many more advantages to it than like a SEP IRA.
Yeah, I mean, a SEP IRA and a solo 401k have similar contribution limits. You can put in over $50,000 a year, but the big difference is that an IRA has no loan feature. So I can't take money out of an IRA without getting penalized. A solo 401k, I can. And that, to your point, Trevor, is why the solo 401k isn't really talked about, because if these big financial companies were talking about a solo 401k, all of a sudden now they're giving their clients the opportunity to yank out $50,000 whenever they want. And as you alluded to earlier, that's not what's in the best interest of them. They make money based off of assets under management, right? They're making 1%, 2%.
That brings up a good. So do you think you think that industry is a little tainted because they're not putting the customer first, and they're putting themselves first and trying to hold on to your money for as long as they possibly can to line their own pockets?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. They're an investment company. So their ultimate goal is to get your money in mutual funds, stocks, right? And absolutely. They want to be able to make their 1% or 2% a year. And if they're managing $100 million, right, 1%, do the math, it's $1 million, $2 million a year that they're just rolling in. They don't want that money to go. So
that's true.
They're there to sell investments. They're there to push products, and that's the opposite of what we do. We don't sell investments. We sell the vehicle. The vehicle is the 401k. The vehicle is the IRA. And people have the right. They should know what vehicles are out there, and they just don't.
I love that, man. I love having people like you a part of our network, dude. I mean, if anybody listening to this is like having questions in their, financial plan or anything, I mean, definitely Danny's a guy to reach out to. I've sent friends to him. I've sent clients to him. So definitely reach out to Quest Education for any of your needs in that area. But dude, you know what I love about having people like you on the show is like you do care. You're an entrepreneur. You care about your clients. And I think a lot of that is because of dude, your upbringing, the struggles you've went through. You started in sales. I know a little bit of your story, and that's what I want to share with some of these guys, because that's what we like to bring in the show is you're a real business owner, dude. You've got a real awesome story coming up to where you're at right now. And dude, I think that's some of the stuff we want to share is kind of your background and how you got to where you're at right now.
Background's important because people need to understand that you don't have to necessarily come from a specific background or have a certain education level, or there's not one straight line path to entrepreneurship or becoming a business owner. It comes in all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds, right? And so if you will, tell us just a little bit about how you grew up. Was it just a normal childhood? Middle class? Was it lower class? Was it higher class? Tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah, and I like that you bring that up, because we were just talking about this off air. A lot of people think that to be a business owner, you either need to come from money, or you had to have been 11 years old, 12 years old, selling lemonade, selling, sports cards.
That it had to be in your DNA ever since you were 2 years old or something.
I think a lot of people listening to Gary Vee probably feel that way, right? Because Gary Vee's always talking about, I was a kid, I grabbed my neighbor's flowers, and then I sold it to, my other neighbor, right? But that's not the case for everyone. I know people listening to this right now, they probably didn't come from that background, right? So for me, I grew up middle class. My dad was a immigration, paralegal, divorce attorney. He serviced the Mexican community in a town called Oceanside, California. My mom was a social worker. So we were middle class, and I never had dreams of owning a business. For me, I played soccer, so I always had a dream of playing, professional soccer. We all have that dream, right? I want to be a professional basketball player, baseball player. Probably never going to work out, right? But we like to think it does.
No, we don't mean to kill anybody's dreams or anything. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and pursue it. But the likelihood is not
for
high.
Sure. I will say, playing sports though, I use a lot of the same principles today, right? I think playing on a team, it creates habits and characteristics of a business owner, right? You need to learn how to lead people. I was never the best on the team, but I was always the captain.
Yeah.
I just naturally fit that role. And
the discipline that it takes to show up to practice every day on the days that you don't feel like going to practice.
100%.
You know, the traveling that it takes to travel to tournaments or this, that, you know, all of the same stuff that you're still doing now. The discipline of having to show up on the days you don't feel like it to the office, the traveling that you do, to be in some of the groups and some of the networks that you're a part of, you know, and, you know, being able to be a leader and play nice with others, right? When you're on a team and everybody's got their own role. I see a huge correlation between sports and business.
Oh, yeah.
So that's awesome that you brought that up.
100%. I mean, because you can be a really good player on the court, but at the end of the day, are you making your team better? Are you making other people better, right? Because
are you trying to just shine yourself? Or are you trying to have your team shine? You know,
exactly. I mean, you get your butt kicked one game. How are you going to respond the next game?
Yeah.
You know, how are you going to deal with, you know, egos? All the same things that you deal with business. So that, looking back, that helped me kind of set the tone for where I'm at today, owning a company. But I had some struggles. My dad moved to Mexico when I was 12.
Okay.
So it left just me and my mom doing what we do, right? My mom was working her tail off to put food on the table, so I didn't get to really see her a whole lot because now, you know, she's raising me on her own. And I harbored a lot of resentment for my dad moving to Mexico because I didn't know why he moved to Mexico.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, I kind of gave my mom hell as a teenager. And I didn't do well in school. And then
at what age was that? What age did you kind of start turning?
My life was really, really good up until like 8th grade. Because 8th grade is when my dad was like, "Hey, I got to drop your grandma off in Mexico. I'll be back next week." I never saw him again, and I didn't know why.
Is he in your life now?
You know, yeah. And I'm helping him out.
Yeah.
You know, he's 70, doesn't have retirement. He had a really good life. He owned a company and made some poor choices, which is why he lives in Mexico. And you know, it's a full circle, man. Like, he owes me a lot of money in child support, but you know, here I am helping him out because at the end of the day, he's my dad. You know, we only have one dad. So for anyone out there that is harboring resentment and you know, you haven't forgiven that person that did you wrong, like, you're only hurting yourself. You know, I held on to a lot of negative shit. Hopefully we can cuss on this.
No, yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. If they're listening to this, they've watched the Instagram. There's plenty of cuss words.
So it's we can choose, right? Are we going to forgive this person and move on, or are we going to just hold on and hold on to grudges? So
so you were about 13 or so,
13,
something
14,
like that.
Yep.
And then you started using drugs, hanging out with the wrong
I started
crowds,
smoking weed, hanging
basically, you know, looking for a group that would accept you, right? When something like that happens in your life, you're kind of looking for acceptance, right? Because something just left the picture, a dad, so you're looking for a group that will say, with open arms, come hang out with us. And for whatever reason, it's always the bad groups that have the open arms. You know,
you hit the nail. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Chances are that group is not going to be like a study group that's going to college, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a group of you know, hooligans that are up to no good, right? So struggled there, and when I turned 16, I was a junior in high school.
So did you do good in school throughout it, or were you just like a DNF student?
You know, I was an A student in middle school, A student in elementary. And, you know, naturally I was able to do well and not study. But then high school, I stopped caring. I stopped showing up to school. I started getting Fs. I just stopped trying. And junior year in school, my mom was like, "Hey, you're going down the wrong path, hanging out with the wrong people. So you need to do something different. I have a friend that lives in St. George, Utah, and I need you to move out there because you're going to go to school out there and you're going to finish."
So you were in California at the time, and then she shipped you to St. George, Utah to go to your junior year of high school?
Senior
year?
Yep. So I moved out to St. George, Utah. I got a job at Stout Roofing. Shout out to Stout Roofing if you guys are listening to this.
They're still there.
I bet, man. I bet.
I got a roofing bid from them last year.
Yeah, they're a tight run company. I know they're really family oriented and they got a good shop. Yeah.
Good.
So I started working there, and I was making $17 an hour senior in high school. I thought I was balling.
Well, you probably were.
And
man, that's all I wanted.
Yeah. If I was making $12 an hour, I was balling 20 years ago or whatever it was. It had to be 20 years ago?
Yeah, it's 06. You know, it's 06. So I had my own place. I worked full time, worked 40 hours a week. And at this stage, you know, I was still holding on to the dream of playing soccer. I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. I didn't ever think about owning a business. I didn't know what I wanted to do in my career. I want to play soccer.
Yeah.
And so I graduated high school, ended up getting decent grades, graduated, and I was roofing at the time. And I finished my first semester of college. I was a freshman at Dixie State. And I only went to Dixie State because they had a soccer team. Yeah. So I played soccer. I finished the semester, finished the soccer season, and I was like, man, school ain't for me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what I want to do. Like, why am I here? So I was really lost. And it was funny, man. I ended up befriending one of the cheerleaders for Dixie State. And her cheerleading coach was having a Halloween party one night. I was roofing the Chili's right here. Is it on the boulevard? Or where's Chili's?
Yeah. No, it's on. Yeah, it's right off the boulevard.
So the job I was doing at Chili's was I was roofing it at night. So during the day it's open, right? We couldn't do what we needed to do. But at night when it was shut down, I was up on the roof, you know, redoing the roof. I was hating life, man, because I was working from 10 o'clock at night to 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And my friend, she's like, hey, let's go to this party. I'm like, nah, I got to work tonight. Like, no, I'm not going. She's just come on. So I ended up going, and the house was Robbie Shavira, and you guys probably know Robbie Shavira. So he had a house here in St. George. It was a nice house. I walk in this house, and I just start looking around the house. I'm like, dude,
just in awe.
Yeah, I'm like, this is a nice house. And I see Robbie. He comes up to me. He's like, what's up, bro? I'm like looking around. I'm like, man, what do you do for work? He's like, sales. He's like, what do you do? He starts just pitching me. I'm like, I roof. He's like, do you like it? I'm like, hell no. He's like, do you want a job? I'm like,
looking around?
Yeah. I'm like, what do you do? He's like, come check it out. So I go to his office the next day, and I walk in the office, and I just see a bunch of dudes on headsets, and I just felt like a buzz. Like, it's just a natural high. I see a bunch of whiteboards, you know, pinned just up, numbers on it. Yeah. You know, I saw some nice cars outside. I didn't know what they were selling. I was like, but I'm ready to make this change. So I quit my job as a roofer, and I just got on the floor and started pitching. Started calling reprints, you know, because when you start off at a sales job, right, they're not going to give you the Glengarry leads.
At the bottom, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So they gave me some reprints, and that's how I got started in sales, man. It's I'm very appreciative of getting in the cold calling industry, because
that helps. That helps. You know, the entrepreneurship side too.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, getting punched in the face over and over, being told no, 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 and just being persistent in, you know, moving on to the next name or the next phone number with, you know, the same sense of enthusiasm that you did when you first came in, and trying to find that next sell. You know, get the no's out of the way to get the yes. So,
you know what's crazy, man? I was at the gym last week. 2 separate times in the same week. All my son's friends are graduating high school, and they come up to me and they're like, hey man, I need some advice. Like, how do you get into business? And my number one advice was get into sales, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, honestly, I don't care if you're knocking doors. I don't care if you go to a telemarketing company. I don't care if you go sell real estate, some business services, whatever it is. Like, get into sales and get really good at it. Yeah. And I don't care if you go to college to get some business degree that might help you, might not. I don't know, because I didn't do that. But at the end of the day, dude, if you got to have a good, strong sales background to succeed in business. So
100%. Yeah, yes. It's key.
So you went into sales. You enjoyed sales. You made good money at sales, I'm guessing, right? That's
I rose and I fell real fast, and because getting involved in a high pace environment like this, you know, everyone's making 6 figures, right? So I'm 18 years old, and I always dreamed of making $100,000 plus a year, right?
Well, if you made $100,000, you'd be rich beyond your wildest dreams. I mean, what you think at 18 years old?
100%.
You know, 100%. That you can have the mansions and all the cars on $100,000 a year, which we come to find out is not the case.
Nope. Super naive thinking, right?
Exactly.
So I was just real dead set on making 6 figures.
Yeah.
And before I got into sales, I always wanted to make 6 figures. I just didn't know what I was going to do to make that income work. And but because of sales, I got into drugs. I got into Oxycontin. Oxycontin was just super prevalent on the sales floor. A lot of those guys would use Oxycontin to just keep on going, like the Energizer Bunny, right? So I got introduced to Oxycontin at 18. So 18, I get addicted to Oxycontin. I'm making 6 figures. I've never seen this kind of money in my life, right? So
The problem
you might have been spending six figures. I heard that was expensive. I never got into it.
It's an expensive one. The money goes quick. You know, before you realize that you even are an full-blown addict, the money's disappeared, and then you start looking around realizing like, holy shit, I'm a full-blown addict. I have no money. Now what? You know, it kind of catches you by the balls pretty quick. It sneaks up on you. But same thing. But I was 19, you know, so within 1 or 2 years of each other. But, you know, somebody said, hey, here's an Oxycontin, right? You know, and I said, what's that? Because 16 years ago or 15 years ago, it wasn't known like it is now. Oh, yeah. So what they did is they said, oh, it's just kind of like a Loratab. And I was like, oh, I've taken one of those before. No big deal. And I took it. And then, you know, day after day after day, it takes you before you even realize that you're taken, you know?
Well, then also because it's a pill, at least I told myself, I convinced myself that I wasn't a drug addict.
It's not a big deal.
I was like, no, I'm not doing heroin. I'm not doing coke. I'm not doing meth. You know, this is just a pill. Like, you know, I'm not a druggie. Like, quit judging. Right. But that's just me being in denial. But yeah, they're expensive. It was $60 for 180 pill. Yeah. I was going through 1 or 2 of those a day.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's, you know, in sales when you're young and you get access to large amounts of money, when you don't have a whole lot of real world knowledge, you know, naive, right, to the fact of how quickly you can be taken by addiction. So me and Danny went down a very, very similar path. How many years were you addicted to drugs?
2 years.
So, and then from there, when you finally kicked your addiction, what made you decide to make that transition? Because usually when you're that deep in the hole, you want to get out, you just don't know how to get out of that addiction, right? And a lot of addicts try to, you know, get out over and over and over, but they just can't. It just really got a good hold on them. And I'm sure you have, you know, people that you used to hang out with that are now dead and gone or in and out of jail still. They just haven't kicked it yet. So what was your kind of turning point in putting that behind you?
Yeah, I mean, for anyone listening to this right now and you struggle with addiction, like there's got to be, like you said, a catalyst to get you over the hump. Because I tried to get clean like 7 different times. I'd get clean for a week or 2 and then I'd relapse, right? So I didn't have a strong enough catalyst. And so there's a caveat to this, you know, at 18, making 6 figures, bought a house, addicted to Oxycontin.
Don't forget the Range Rover, dude.
Yeah, bought a Range Rover. Then I had a kid, right? And it was with someone that I didn't plan on being with. I didn't plan on having a kid, right? So all of that all happened. You know, I'm 18 years old. And I still kept using, you know, even though I had a kid, I still kept using. But I remember like it was yesterday. This November will be 10 years that this event happened. But so 10 years ago, it was Thanksgiving Day, I was trying to score some Oxy. And everyone that I was hitting up to get a pill, they weren't picking up the phone, right? I mean, they're probably actually like, you know,
doing stuff with their family.
Yeah. You know, but I'm over here just being a selfish douchebag. Like, dude, pick up your phone. Like, I need to get high. I'm withdrawing, right? Because you feel the physical effects of not having it, right? You're throwing up, you get the shakes. And no one's picking up the phone. And at this time, my daughter is 6 months, 7 months. And I'm like, dude, what am I doing? Like, it's Thanksgiving. Like, I'm not even home with my family right now. I'm over here chasing a pill. Like, I just had a moment where I just really audited myself.
Moment of
and just like, I remember just started crying. I was just like, dude, is this really the kind of man I'm going to be, the kind of person I'm going to be? And everything happened at that same time where I'm like, I forgave my dad too. Because I'm like, man, you know, just because my dad wasn't in my life, you know, am I really going to be what he was, you know, like, am I going to do this to my daughter, right? And that's when I was like, dude, I can't do this. Like, I got to be there for my daughter. And I'm like, I looked at my daughter. I'm like, man, that's my blood. I'm like, I got the same blood as my dad. Like, so I just, at that point, I just let go of the anger and the resentment, and then I just focused on just being a better person. And I'm like, you know, for me to get clean, I got to move. You know, props to the people that can get rid of addiction and they stay in the same
environment.
City. Yeah,
right?
I mean, like,
a lot of people have to remove themselves from an environment that originally put themselves in a scenario.
Yeah, I moved to Las Vegas. Right, people laugh at me when I'm like, yeah, I moved to Sin City to get clean from Oxycontin, to get clean from drugs. And but yeah, this November.
That's where I used to go to pick them up.
Exactly. Yeah, me too.
You know, not to run away from it. You know.
So I got a new phone number, new city, and started a new life. And this November will be 10 years.
So you didn't do like, Suboxone or some of the stuff where you kind of have to calm down, or did you just deal with it cold turkey? Or what?
I did Suboxone for about a week and a half.
Yeah.
And for the people that know what Suboxone is, it's this orange pill it's maybe the size of a Skittle, right around there. And what happens is every day that you take it, you take less and less, right?
Yeah.
So you break this pill apart and you just take less and less.
You let it dissolve under your tongue.
Yeah. So it got to the point where like a week or two later, like I have the smallest of the smallest pieces that I'm putting in my tongue.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? Like this small ass piece?
I did it the same way.
This small ass piece is going to make me get clean? I'm like, dude, F this. So I just...
you stopped taking it?
I stopped taking it. I smoked a bunch of weed for a couple weeks to just get past the withdrawals.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, dude, the doctors are telling me, or people are telling me to take Suboxone or methadone to get clean. Yeah. This is just replacing a pill with a pill. Like, F this. Yeah. So I just stopped doing the Suboxone and just smoked weed for a couple weeks. And
that's what the Suboxone doctor told me. He said, you're supposed to take Suboxone for like 6 months for every year you've been using. And I told him, I'm like, listen, I've been taking something on a day-to-day basis just to feel normal for the last 3 years. Yeah. The last thing I'm going to do is then be prescribed something to take every single day for the next year and a half. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. And he's, you're going to withdraw, you're going to, and then you're going to want to go back to it and, all this stuff. And I said, well, that might be the case for most, but it's not going to be for me. Yeah. I already know what I want. I just needed something to kind of help get me over those first few 4 to 6 weeks, and I'm good to go. And I haven't really looked back since.
How long have you been clean?
On July 13th, it'll be, is it 11 years or 12 years?
That a boy, man.
I forgot. I stopped counting. Yeah. So after a period of time, it's so far in the past that I don't really think about it that much anymore. I believe it's 12 years because my daughter turns 10 this year. So,
it's crazy how similar you guys' stories are, man. Yeah.
Cells, drugs, to entrepreneurship.
Your child,
you know what I mean?
Just being that catalyst.
So tell us a little bit about that. So after you got clean, did you just go right back into sales?
Yeah, I went back into selling coaching. So, I always sold either e-commerce, biz op coaching, or real estate coaching. Yeah. So when I moved down to Vegas, I started selling real estate coaching. And this is when I got introduced to self-directed retirement accounts. Okay. And I started to learn, a self-directed retirement account, you can buy real estate. You can purchase a property and flip it. You can have a piece of property be a rental unit. So instead of having your retirement account own a mutual fund, it can own real estate. Oh shit, okay. So that got planted in my head at that time, and I thought it was really cool because a lot of the real estate coaching investors knew about self-directed accounts. So that's how I became aware of it then. And at that point in my early 20s, I always knew I wanted to be in the financial world. I did like the idea of learning about stocks and mutual funds and real estate and IRAs and 401ks and stuff like that. It just fascinated me. So, but I was making good money doing coaching, selling, what I was selling. Yeah. So that was hard to pass up. When I was 25, so this is 7 years in the game of doing it, I probably 3 or 4 years into the game, as I started to learn more about the back end, the fulfillment, it started to make me change how I looked at things. Because when I first started selling, I didn't know better, right? I'm selling 10 grand, 15, 20 grand packages. I didn't really know what went into it, right? I'm just selling and trying to make a commission.
You're just staying in your lane.
Exactly.
You're worried about picking up that check on Friday, sell. The fulfillment's, whatever happens after the sale happens after the sale. So you're just kind of, again, being a typical sales guy where you're focused on commissions, right?
Yep, 100%. And then it got to a point a few years later where I'm like, man, would I sell my mom this? And it didn't take more than a second. I'm like, hell no. Would I buy this?
And that's what made you make that transition?
Yeah. I mean, I stopped getting a whole lot of value from it. I didn't get fulfillment from it anymore. Yeah, I'm making good money, but am I really making a difference? And at that point, I'm just like, look.
So making a bunch of money isn't everything.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, your heart has to be in it, right? I mean,
I've told a few people, like, at first when you're young, it is always about money.
Sure.
It's always about money. I want to get rich. I want to make six figures, just like you talked about. That's just the elusive number that everyone's trying to chase, right? If I can make six figures, I'm going to live the best life in the entire world, right? And then you get to the point where you start making six figures, and you're like, this is it? I've made it, and you start really evaluating yourself a little bit and trying to figure out ways where you can actually, instead of fill up the bank account, try to fill up your soul a little bit and start making more of an impact, right? And so then you start focusing less on the money side of things and more on the impact side of things. In other words, the fulfillment, and making sure that you're doing a good job on the back end and fulfilling and making sure customers are happy. And then by default, because you do that, the money side just starts happening, right?
Yeah, 100%. And you have to be willing to take a haircut. Right. I mean, when I quit selling coaching at 25 years old, it was 25.
Took a step back, big time financially.
I went from making six figures to not making six figures.
Yeah.
Right. And luckily, I married a Filipino. Filipinos are cheap as shit. So I married her. I got with her when I was like 23, 24. So, she helped me get a lot more. I'm more conservative now because of her, right? Before I would just spend money and not really have a budget and not look at the numbers.
It's okay. There's more money coming in.
Exactly.
After,
I'll just make another check.
You make a couple grand in a week, it goes out.
Yeah.
You're going to have another check for a couple grand come back in.
For sure. So because I became a little bit more cognizant of where my money was going, I was able to take a step back that year and be okay. And then, the rest is history. Now it's to a point where the company I'm a part of is like, man, I have a solo 401k.
Yeah.
Some of my family members have the same retirement accounts that
You're practicing what you preach.
Exactly. I mean, I'm cooking, and I didn't do that before, and it feels way better.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, dude, you gotta be selling something that you do believe in, and you figure that out as you get more in the game and you get a little older. I feel like any good entrepreneur, honestly, has their heart in the right place and wants to sell something they feel good about. I was just talking about that with Jeremy not too long ago. I was like, dude, I tell people when we go to these conferences, these groups, I'm like, well, yeah, I believe in what I sell, man. I mean, I use it. Yeah. I use our accountants here. I use, our tax planners, our tax prep guys. Yeah. I mean, I use our service, so I can totally relate with that, dude.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're listening to this right now and you're selling something that you're not really stoked about and you're doing well with it, like, think how much better you could do if you're like heart was 100% in it.
Exactly.
We talk about this, like us coming from selling some stuff that, we don't feel the best about today. It did teach us a lot, right?
Yeah.
Phone sales, that's why I have a lot of respect for people door knocking and phone sales, right? Cold calling, knocking on someone's door without them expecting it. Like, dude, you're getting rejected, right?
Constantly.
People are calling you names. They're hanging up on you. They're slamming the door in your face. You're getting way more no's than yeses. But the ability to be able to turn someone around and, get good at reading people and asking questions and just shutting the F up, it's an art, So I'm grateful. It's a double-edged sword, because of the sales industry. It got me into drugs, and had a kid real early, and I had some down moments. But shoot, man, there's no college degree that I could have got that actually gave me what I have.
Equaled some of the lessons that you learned throughout this. Yeah, I'm grateful for even the struggles of addiction. The reality is, I believe that addicts are very, very powerful people. And what I mean by that is somebody that's addicted to something is the most resourceful person on the planet, because they wake up broke every single morning, but they figure out a way to get what they want to get by the end of the day. And they do it every single day over and over and over. And if somebody can overcome an addiction like that and utilize that same resourcefulness, but for something positive, something, like a business, they can be very, very successful. The reality is it's just most people aren't as relentless as a drug addict in terms of searching for drugs like a Thanksgiving. Why everyone's in the other room, could you imagine if you were in sales, everyone's like in the other room, you're on Thanksgiving plugging away, like, hey, Mr. Customer, I know it's Thanksgiving, but, I really want to tell you about my product and service,
Yeah.
So I do believe that an addict on the other side of addiction, once they pop out, are very, very powerful people. Again, it's just channeling that energy and channeling that resourcefulness to something positive. But one thing I do want to talk to you about, because I've talked about it a little bit more frequently than I have in the past, is like entrepreneurship groups or networking groups, because I do get hit up, in the DM and saying, hey, how do I level up in business or in life in general? And we haven't been a part of really, entrepreneurship groups, as much as you have. And we actually did lean on Danny originally before we joined the Apex group, right? And asked him, hey, how do you like it? And so far, what are we, 2 or 3 months in?
Yeah.
And we're enjoying the fact of, being around, a group of just people who want to be better and level up and are wanting to be high achievers. And when you surround yourself with a bunch of other people like that, it definitely kind of forces you to think bigger and level up. So tell us a little bit about your experiences in getting involved into these paid entrepreneurship groups, because some people go to these little, the small chamber of commerce in their local, some of the smaller groups that are like free or whatever, and you don't get a whole lot of value. So some people are like, why are you talking about networking groups?
Yeah.
It's the ones that you have to pay to get into, because the people that are actually paying, they value that time a little bit more than maybe like a BNI or a Chamber of Commerce. So, Kel, what was your thought on that?
Dude. I was going to say, it's a super weird conversation to have. Like, we're going from talking about selling coaching we didn't believe in to becoming a buyer of certain coaching groups. But dude, I've had great results from it, right? So there is great coaching out there.
Yeah.
And then there is not such great coaching programs out there as well.
Yeah.
So we've been fortunate to be part of some great ones.
Yeah. I mean, being a part of Arte and Apex has been a game changer. It all started because at the end of the day, like, there's really not a lot of people in my family that own businesses. I have a tight circle, so I didn't know, except really you guys. I didn't know a lot of people that own companies, had employees, doing, 7 figures plus a year in revenue, right? So I'm like, man, I got to think bigger. Like, I got to level up, right? I got to surround myself with people that are doing way bigger than me. And so that's where it's funny. I have a hate-love relationship with Grant Cardone. So Grant Cardone, I purchased Cardone U for our company a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And because of that, I found out about 10X in Las Vegas last year. So I went to 10X, and at that time, I heard Andy Frisella and Ed Milet speak on stage. And I didn't even know who these two dudes were at this point in time. And Andy talked about core values, and his speech just blew my mind. And then Ed talked about chasing a better you. Like, are you chasing a better you every day? And I'm like, damn. Like, so those two resonated with me way more than Cardone, way more than Ty Lopez or anyone else.
Right.
So then I started following those dudes on podcasts. I'm like, wait, there's a podcast? Like, I thought podcasts were just like people talking about sports,
or some news,
exactly.
Or some weird shit.
I was oblivious to the other side of podcasts.
Yeah.
I didn't know about audiobooks. At this point, I'm maybe reading 1 or 2 books a year if I'm lucky. Yeah. So I'm really not investing in personal development at this point in time. So then I start following Ed and Andy on podcasts, and I'm really liking what they're talking about. I'm subscribing to what they're talking about. And then they bring up, hey, we're going to do this program together. It's called Arte. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know what it's about, but if you two are endorsing it and you guys are doing it, like, I'm in. So I joined Arte at that point, and through Arte is how I got lined up with Ryan Stewman and Apex. And I think, you're right. In order to level up, you have to surround yourself with people that are doing it way bigger than you. And I think a good barometer to know which group jives well with you is like, what are your weaknesses, right? I know last year we're not perfect by any means, but, culture, leadership, right? Like, I don't have anyone in my family that owns a business, so I can't just call my uncle and be like, yo, how do you deal with firing an employee, or how do you deal with, being a better leader, right? And so that's why I gravitated toward Ed and Andy. But look at whoever you're following. Like, making money is important, but, do they have their fitness game on point? Are they happily married? Are they in a good relationship? Have they, those are telltale signs, right? Like, you
almost vetting
for sure,
who you're following and who you're kind of buying into, because as you said, you gravitated towards those guys more so than anybody, but their podcasts aren't full of like ads, right? They're not trying to make a ton of money just off of their podcasts. They're not selling a bunch of like ebook courses and saying, no offense, like Ty Lopez or whatever might have great courses or whatever. I don't personally know, but to me it's off-putting because it doesn't feel like he's trying to give value first. It's just sell, sell, sell. Same with Grant is kind of what I get, and I prefer Ed and Andy myself, right? Those are the only two podcasts that I really listen to. I would say, more so on a religious basis, right? Like where I kind of look forward to what they're going to come out with next. Yeah. Right. But yeah, like the reason why I wanted to bring that topic up with you is because you were doing these groups before we were really doing these groups in terms of like Ryan Stewman's Apex group. And, like I said, we're only a couple months into the group, but we've already created some great, relationships personally and, business wise.
Everybody wants to help each other. Everyone wants to help the business grow. There are guys at different levels that you want to surround yourself with, and guys want to surround themselves with us because we're at a different level than them. So it's cool, man. It's almost like a ladder, right?
The ladder to success is probably through your network, right? And so if you're surrounding yourself with people that are doing it much bigger than you and they're reaching down and helping you and pulling you up, there's going to be some people underneath you that you can turn around and reach down and pull them up as well. But guys, I would highly, highly encourage any of you that have ever thought about, some of these high power entrepreneur groups, if you feel like that there's kind of something missing, like Danny was talking about, he's kind of looking around, he doesn't have anybody to really vibe with or somebody that even understands him. Because I've had the same issue, like trying to go out with my wife's friends or whatever it is. Like I don't even know what to talk about at dinner, right? Because I feel like my problems are different than their problems because we're on more so the entrepreneurship side and they may be on the employee side. And so they would rather bitch about their employer and I would rather talk about making money, right? So there's sometimes a disconnect when you're just out in the real world trying to go to dinner with, just a regular person. There's not a whole lot to, discuss or a whole lot of, common ground, I guess is the right word for it. And so when you're inside of these groups and you're working with these people, everybody deals with struggles. Everybody has their own issues that they're dealing with inside of their business. And it's just nice to be able to be inside of the walls with other people that you feel comfortable and confident that you can disclose what your struggles are in business and then, actually get real true feedback from people that have maybe already overcome that issue or just having different eyeballs on the problem that might say, oh, well, why don't you try this? And, that the first one that I did was last month, right? And it was kind of cool just to go around the room and everyone talks about the issues that they're facing and everyone's kind of giving ideas and chipping in like, hey, maybe you should try this or do this. And everybody's helping each other kind of level up and overcome struggles because that's one thing that is guaranteed in business is struggles. But what's not guaranteed is the success, right? Or coming out the other side. That's the big question mark of whether once you go through the struggles, will there be, a light at the end of the tunnel? So tell me one thing that you think everybody should know about being a business owner prior to even getting into business for themselves. What's something that you would kind of, if you were to create an expectation of, a young, hungry, motivated individual wanting to be a business owner, what piece of advice would you give that person?
Man, it's a toss-up. It's for me when you ask that question, first thing that came to my mind is know your numbers. But then, like Kale talked about, it's can you sell? Like, how's your sales game? Because if you can create revenue, if you can solve problems, and you can have that gift of gab and be able to generate new business, that's what it's about, right? Because selling is a way of life. You got to sell to get leads. You got to sell to make sales. You got to sell your employees on the vision, right? I mean, it's just you got to sell. At the same time, to go to the next level, you got to know your numbers. Because I know a lot of salespeople, especially me, like other than our commission checks, right? We're not really trying to pay attention to the numbers, right? We're notorious for just not checking our bank account, not planning, not really knowing our numbers.
Right.
You guys are different cats because you guys are actually legit and you're, a tax service accounting company. So you guys definitely know your shit. But I know a lot of companies out there struggle. Like, what was your P&L last month? What was your revenue? Where'd you spend your money on? and just really knowing your numbers.
The majority of them can't answer that question.
No, exactly.
It's probably one of the first real big hurdles that you're going to face as a business owner. Because, I mean, you can sell, you can start a business.
For sure.
You know, but that is one of the big hurdles you're going to come to first is becoming responsible in that area.
Yeah, and it takes time, and it's not as sexy as getting on the phone and making a sale and getting that adrenaline rush. It's actually the opposite, because sometimes you look at the numbers, you're like, fuck. But it's the necessary evil, right? The devil's in the details, right? So you got to know your numbers, because, you know, Stewman talks about this all the time. Like, you know, if you can't measure that shit, how do you know where you're at, right? So it's cash flow projections, you know, forecasting, patterns, trends. You have to spot that out. So I highly recommend that people really know their numbers, know their KPIs.
That's good advice, man. Really good advice.
Yeah, in regards to, you know, sales and all that, you know, somebody asks, and we get asked this quite often, like, you guys own Easier Accounting, so you're a CPA or an accountant? I'm like, no. You know, and there was an individual that reached out, like, what do you mean? You're not a CPA or an accountant? I'm like, no, me and my partner have a sales background. Like, you can always put fulfillment in place. Right? If you're good at sales, you can be the sales side of your business and hire the people who know what they're doing in regards to CPAs or accountants and train them on how you want them to service your clients. And basically that's what we're doing with Easier Accounting is we're, you know, out there talking about Easier Accounting with inside of these network groups, right? Creating referral partners and creating relationships. And we're the fuel, but the engine itself, the CPAs and accountants, they're in here on the back end doing the work and doing the fulfillment. And a lot of people ask the same thing that you're talking about in terms of what should I do if I want to be a good entrepreneur or a good business owner? And I say the same thing. I say, go find a sales job. Go put your head down for like 2 or 3 years. Go work in sales, because you're going to deal with rejection over and over and over, and some days you're going to be super motivated and want to put up all the sales and beat everybody, and then some days you're going to come in very unmotivated and kind of half-ass it or whatever it is. But I think sales it correlates with entrepreneurship quite a bit in terms of dealing with rejection and having to try to come back with enthusiasm and energy on a day-to-day basis, no matter what happened yesterday, like taking a loss. If you invested 10 grand into something and it didn't work out, you have to show up the next day with the same level of energy and enthusiasm to overcome that loss and continue to push your business down the track.
Yeah, there's a big shift too from sales to entrepreneurship, which is like, man, you're not just producing for you anymore as a sales guy. Once you become an entrepreneur, you're not producing for an entire squad. You know what I mean? Like, you got to bring the revenue for multiple people, and you got to bring the leads for multiple sales guys, and so you're out making sales to help your sales guys and help your fulfillment teams. And I mean, that's one of the biggest shifts I think you see is going into business, is like, you got to get that sales background, but then there is going to be that shift of, now you're doing it for everybody, not just you. So.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's people that are relying on what you're doing, and you're feeding families, right? They use that money for their mortgage payment, you know, taking care of their kids. And you know, you bring up a good point, Kale. It does come down to, the sales background, but once you go from sales to an entrepreneur, then you have to know a little bit about everything, right? Like, for me, you know, I don't do all the marketing for us, but I got to know a little bit about it, because if I'm spending money on ads and offers and funnels, like, I'm not trying to get ripped off, right? Yeah. I have an operations manager that runs, you know, our operations. I got to know a little bit about everything, just so I make sure that I'm plugged in.
How many times have you wasted money to figure out that this doesn't work, so you become smarter and more efficient? Kind of the process of elimination as a business owner, trying to figure out your business and the marketing strategies that work best for what you do.
All the time, man. I mean, business is testing, right? You're always testing.
You're in the lab all the time.
You are always testing, and that's why, back to the original point that we've been talking about, is get a job where you fail a lot, you know, in the very beginning, right? That's why I'm a big proponent of door knocking or cold calling, right? Because when I started selling, or on the phone selling, right, I had to call at least 150 to 200 leads every single day.
Yeah, they're monitoring your dials.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Right? Go find a job like that makes you put in the work, makes you fail. So then I'm a big believer. I'd rather get punched early. Right? I'd rather fail early, get punched a shitload. So in that way, at least I can be a little more experienced and you know, have a have a little more wisdom along the ride.
Yeah, you become definitely, smarter and more efficient, throughout the process of elimination. A lot of people are so concerned about losing money in business. Like, I don't know if I want to try that. Like, what if it doesn't work? The majority of things that you do try will not work, right? If there was more things that did work, then you could throw money out there and money would just immediately come back. Yeah. Right? There's only a few things that within sight of your business will actually work for you, and what works for us might be different than what works for you, and that's why testing is so important. Some people, on Instagram hit me up and say, what should I do here for marketing, or how should I market this? I said, test it. I can't tell you. That's not my level of expertise. I'm not a marketing major. I don't know how to market apparel, right? Like, that's not something that I've done. So I would just recommend for you to go out there and test Facebook ads, test Instagram, and try a couple different ad sets. Just try everything, because throughout the process of elimination, you'll find something that does work for your business. And when you find what does work for your business and you double and triple down on that, then all you're doing from there is just really scaling. Yep. Right? And the idea here, guys, we're good at sales, and that's kind of what we do for our businesses. But you don't necessarily have to have a sales background to be a business owner. Maybe you're the fulfillment side. Maybe somebody's an accountant or CPA and they want to start their own business, but they don't want to be on the front end communicating with people. And that brings another point of, hiring people or getting the help in the areas that you're not necessarily an expert in, right? An accountant or CPA should maybe hire a sales representative to be at the forefront of their company, onboarding clients and doing all the follow-up stuff, right? So you've really got to determine whether you're on the sales side of your business or whether you're on the fulfillment side of your business, because it is difficult to try to do both and do both effectively, right?
No matter what side you're on, though, it's a matter of quit thinking and start doing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, action. So many people are like, dude, they're asking for advice about, what ads to run or how much to invest. It's like, dude, just start doing it, man. Like, I don't know. When did you get to that point to actually start a business? Like, man, start thinking about this financial game and actually just start a financial business.
It was probably about 3 years ago. Maxed out my wife's credit cards and, just put a shitload of money in the business. And I've always been one to take action and then after think about it. I still have a lot of those qualities, but now I'm a little more methodical, right? Because it's like, okay, I have employees that rely on this. I have a budget I'm sticking to. When you deal with a lot of money, you do have to make sure that you're doing the right thing, right? Most of it's not going to work, right? But
yeah, that doesn't mean throw money.
Exactly,
exactly. Don't be dumb with it. Still evaluate where you're throwing money and do the, like we said, the tests.
Yep.
Don't go balls deep into one specific marketing strategy without knowing it's going to work, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's going to take time. Like, everyone sees the end result and they think it's just so easy and there is no trial and error and it just happens so fast, but that's just a bunch of BS.
Everyone's looking for the shortcut.
Oh, yeah.
They want the shortcut. There has to be one, and that's what they think. But there really is no shortcut. There's no half-assing it on the path to success, right? Somebody asked a question just like 3 or 4 days ago. It says, how do you put the writing on the bottom of your videos on Instagram? And I said, you're looking for a shortcut. I said, you literally have to type it in.
Google that shit.
I'm not smarter than Google. Yeah, Google it.
Yeah.
And you'll realize that there's no app that exists that's converting it into the words at the bottom of Instagram. So if you really want a video like that, you have to do the work. You have to actually hand type each word in at the bottom of the video for it to be displayed. But again, people are sliding into the DMs looking for that secret or looking for that shortcut. And I said, I know you're looking for a shortcut because I look too.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well,
you actually have to put in the work and type that shit out.
Well, like Kale said, it just comes down to action. And I think if we just reverse engineer it, a lot of people are afraid to take action because they're afraid of what other people are going to think about them, or they're afraid of failing. And again, back to having that entry-level sales job. If you're knocking on doors, if you're cold calling, you are going to fail a shitload.
You're used to it.
So for me, I'm not afraid of failing. And I think that's huge. But you also have to recognize that you can't be reckless, because then you're going to fail. If you fail enough times without having that home run or that base hit, you will run out of money and you will run out of business.
So you got to be quick to learn and implement, but patient with the results.
Yep.
The real shortcut is learning from other people, man, learning from other mistakes, and everybody you'll learn from, whether it's this podcast or another one or the guys at way different levels than us, they all say the same thing, man. They're like, take action, go through failure, learn from it, you know what I mean? And you have to be patient, you know, like that's kind of the shortcut.
Yeah, no, you're right. I was actually literally going to say that the shortcut I do believe in is getting involved with paid networks, you know, because then you're around other people that have been there and done it, doing it better than you, that can share some of their, you know, mistakes, and that way you can learn from.
There's a lot of power, man. You get the right group, in the right group. There's a lot of power.
You can be in the right group. You can have the best podcasts that you listen to, the best books that you read, but ultimately it does come down to action. A book that came to my mind when you talked about like which one am I? Am I the sales or, you know, kind of the fulfillment? It's called Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, and it just talks about a visionary. A visionary is one that's really good at selling, right? That's kind of their MO. The face, right? And then you got the integrator. The integrator is like the glue, right? They're making sure that the fulfillment and everything is on point from an operational standpoint. Best example is Disney, right? Walt was the visionary. Everyone knows Walt, right? I mean, that motherfucker can sell, right? He was the brand. But no one really knows that Walt's brother was the integrator. Like, he was actually running the business. Like, he was actually making sure that the financials and, you know, the operation, the fulfillment, exactly. There's nothing wrong with being the integrator, right? You might not get as much shine, right? But you still, they're both super important. Exactly. So, you know, anyone that's kind of trying to figure out where they fit, that's a really good book to read, to just kind of figure out, you know, which one are you.
That's crazy, man. I never actually heard of that book, dude. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to pick that up. Be my next read.
Yeah.
So people wanted to reach out to you, and did they just had questions in regards to, you know, getting access to money and things like that? You know, where would somebody find you?
I'm most active on Facebook and LinkedIn, so that they just type in Daniel Blue, and I'm out in Las Vegas. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Daniel Blue in Las Vegas. And they can always visit us at yourquest.com, Y-O-U-R, quest.com. They just put in their contact information. My team would reach out to them and help them out. And then they can always just reach out to me directly on Facebook and LinkedIn. And I'm pretty active in responding to DMs and providing as much value as I can.
Cool. And if you guys have questions in regards to where to reach Danny as well, you can send us a direct message at Real Business Owners on Instagram. And then we could, you know, relay some information over to you where you can get a hold of Danny. But guys, if you've enjoyed this episode 6 of the Real Business Owners podcast, make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend or family member about it. You know, we love to bring these to you guys. Hopefully, you guys are getting the value that we intended to bring to you throughout these podcasts. And again, we appreciate you.